Welcome to the Grad-Titude Podcast, where we discuss all things growth, personal development, and community. I am your host, Geraldine Naomi Diaz, here to spread love, light, and value. Today, I have a special guest with me. I have Arissan Nicole. Arissan is a career, mindset, and certified life coach. She uses her knowledge and expertise to help women who are exhausted, overwhelmed, and unhappy at their job find confidence they need to make a career change that adds excitement and inspiration into their life. So I'm very happy to have you here with us today.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. And we'll jump right into the first question. So, my first question for you is, what are you grateful for today and why?
Love that question. Always a lot of things to be grateful for, but today specifically, I actually went on my first walk run, which is a big deal because I've been injured. Both my feet have been injured and I haven't been able to do any sort of running or movement for over 13 weeks. And it's been a long journey of
Wow.
boots and PT. So today was my first day where I've run 10 minutes. So I'm very grateful for that.
I'm so proud of you, and I can 100% resonate with that. As somebody who's been injured and had to stop, whether it was working out or running, it's a lot. And for that to be 13 weeks long, it feels like the longest weeks ever. But 10 minutes running today, you go. I'm very, very proud of you.
Thank you. Me too.
You're welcome. And I know that you're going to continue on with your routine and definitely increase on your time running and walking down the line, hopefully fully healed.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. And my next question for you is, can you share some of your own stories that made you realize you weren't living life on your terms and you needed to get out of this place of employment?
Mm. Yes, I feel like so I've done quite a couple career pivots. And so for the first pivot that I made, the aha moment for me that I needed to get out was I was actually on an airplane on my way to Singapore. So I was like in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and I loved traveling. That's like was my favorite aspect of part of the job. And I pretty much had my first kind of like panic attack. I just have never felt in my whole entire life like I wanted to get off that plane immediately. And I remember like needing to breathe and like calm myself down. And that was, I think, a wake up moment for me that it was time to make a change. And it was my first big career change. And I loved everyone I worked with. I worked with really great people. I got to travel the world. I had a lot of great things I loved and there was just something that felt obvious as missing if I was having a panic attack. There was something in the disconnect there. And so that was like the first time that I like listened and was like, okay, I need to make a change. You can have great coworkers, you can have like great things that you're doing and you can still be unsatisfied and unhappy and that's okay. And so that was the first big one. And then kind of the second one that led me to starting my own business and becoming a coach. I was extremely burnt out, and I'm the type of person I would like to say that I'm hopefully getting a little bit better about this. Uh, when I'm burnt out or I'm tired, I don't listen to myself until my body actually breaks down on me. Like whether or not
Mhm.
I get super sick, I get super injured, that's when I go, oh, okay, what's going on? But specifically, I had been working and I didn't love my director, was not great. And I was super just from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. I was not at home and I was going, going,
Wow.
going. And the pandemic hit. The pandemic hit and everything just went to shit pretty much.
Yep,
And excuse my language.
it's okay.
And and for the first time, I was like, well, everything's shut down. I'm very unhappy. What do I want? And that was, I think, the first time that I allowed myself to be like, it's okay to want what you want and like go pursue it. And so that was when I started making, and it was like a long process from when that moment of it's time to say yes to myself to actually leaving the corporate job I think it was about like a little over a year later was when I finally made the move, but I was making steps because I was like, I need to make a change for myself and do it for me. And this is like the best time for it. And the world shut down. Everything else in my life was just falling apart. So I was like, if everything's falling apart and I can build new, why not build exactly how I wanted to build?
That's such a great perspective to have. And thank you so much for sharing both of your stories. As somebody who's also had a panic attack, it's not something easy to deal with, especially I can't even begin to imagine it happening on a plane for a work trip. Like that must have felt like your world was ending right at that moment. I can imagine.
Yeah, it was I didn't know what was happening too, and so that was really hard for me, and I was by myself for work. I was scouting ahead, and it was one of those things where I was traveling more than I was gonna be on the ground, and I still had probably at least 5 more hours of flying, and yeah, it was one of those things where I was just, like, breathing, like, gripping, like, trying to be, like, there luckily, there was no one sitting next to me. I was able to, like, put the screen up and, like, not be, like, in a tight row or else that could have been way different.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you handled the situation to the best of your ability, especially not knowing what was happening to you at the moment, because I used to experience panic attacks in high school all the time, and I didn't find out that they were panic attacks until like years later. And I'm like, I've just been getting panic attacks all this time, and I just didn't know what it was. But it really does feel very heavy. And it's just like, I need to be alone right now, and I just need to focus on my breath. And I just need to make sure that like I'm here and I'm okay. And I
Yeah.
know that even in moments that I go through personal panic attacks, I don't know if you do this, but I just tell myself all the time, I'm like, I'm okay, I'm safe. I'm okay, I'm safe. It's okay to feel how I'm feeling, but I'm okay and I'm safe and this is going to pass. And just like keep repeating that all the time, almost like an affirmation. But jumping to your second story, that feeling of burnout is no joke.
Mhm.
It is no joke. I've been there and it just feels like every single day is very long and it's never coming to an end. And for you to be working hours, you said 5 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Those would was when I was leaving, but I was working like, 12, 13, 14-hour days depending on the day and being in 10, 11 meetings and then working.
No, that's really a lot and it really takes a toll on you. And that's why I love what you're doing. And even just seeing your content, I know that it's very purposeful and it's very personable to you. And I feel like that's why people can trust you to lead them towards careers that actually bring them fulfillment and genuine joy because you've been on the other side of the road. You've been on the side where you're dealing with panic attacks, you've been on the side where you're dealing with burnout. And it's a lie. It's not something easy. And it takes those moments for you to realize, to be like, I deserve more. Like, maybe I shouldn't be working these long hours. There's people that are working normal hours and they love what they do and they're getting paid well. Like, why can't that be my reality, essentially? But thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing both of your stories, which takes me into the next question. So, you founded your own company. I would love to hear more about Authentic Empowerment LLC and why you started it.
Yeah. I wanted I believe in a different way of doing things based away from the normal, like
Mhm.
normal, I'm
Same.
air quoting. And I named it Authentic Empowerment LLC versus like my name, Arissan Nicole, because I really have kind of this vision of it being more than just me and coaching, but really wanting to empower women of color to trust themselves and step into their power and discover what it is that they want. And I really, really believe that like you're not broken. Like women don't need to be fixed. And there's a lot of systemic issues. And so I wanted to build like my company is about helping you on the individual level while also putting context and navigating the systemic issues and knowing because there's so many times that I see when I'm working with someone and they're, for example, dealing with self-worth and perfectionism and things like that, they're very like, oh, I need to fix this about myself. There's something wrong. And I'm like, hold up. This is a bigger, there's a reason why you're feeling like how you're feeling. You did not come into this world feeling the way that you're feeling. And there's a lot of systems and there's a lot of messages that, whether knowing or unknowing, has informed and shaped this. And so to only blame yourself and feel like it's just you can feel really isolating, which is also why systems of oppression and things thrive in isolation. And so for me, authentic empowerment is really both the individual level of helping people tap into their power for themselves and like learning how to source it for themselves, and not me just saying this is how you do better at life. I don't believe that. I don't think I'm here to fix people, because I don't think you're broken, but really being like, this is a space for you to show up and discover what it is and what it means to be you fully. And then also in the meantime, I'm like, in whatever systems I can like tear down or change narratives around, the better. And I'm going to do that constantly too.
Exactly. I love the approach that you're taking with Authentic Empowerment LLC, because I feel like oftentimes people that work in this space that try to get people like the careers that they desire miss the mark of seeing you as a whole person, right? They just see you as the worker, as the employee, and they're like, okay, let's fix the LinkedIn, let's fix the resume, let's fix the cover letter. But a lot of times it's internalized. Like, you feel like you're not worthy of that salary. You feel like you're not worthy of that position. So the fact that you're tapping into people on a more individual level and almost like taking a holistic approach, I feel like that's what you're doing. Um, I feel like that's such a beautiful way to take the approach, and it's definitely something that sets you apart, because there's not many people out there, taking that approach with this area.
Yeah. I call it like for career coaching, because, there obviously is the stuff to the resume and LinkedIn, but really I like to take an inside out approach, because ultimately, and we can make you have the most beautiful resume, but if you're not feeling these things on your resume, or you aren't connected with your job, then you're going to get the new job and you're still going to be unhappy. So it is the full person, holistic approach. And the more I say you get to know yourself more, identify your values, what matters to you, the things you love to do, not just what you're good at doing, then that is where your doors open in different ways. You are able to play, get curious, experiment, and that career and job feel more aligned with who you are.
Exactly. And I hope that I have a definitely like recent grad. A lot of my audience is recent grads, and some are up until like their mid 30s. But I hope that they listen to what you're saying, because I think that a lot of times, especially when you're coming out of college, or even if you didn't attend college, when you're early on in your career, you're just chasing the money, or you're just chasing a job. You're not chasing fulfillment. You're just like, oh my gosh, any job that will take me, thank you so much. But you need to find somewhere that aligns with your personal values. And I'm so happy that you brought that up, because I definitely was at that point one time that I was just like, just give me the job. But the deeper I got into my career, I'm just like, it needs to align with my personal values. It needs to align with my personal mission and vision of my life. Like, you can't be working at a company and it's not, if you're somebody that cares about community empowerment and you're working for a company that does not care about community empowerment or doesn't work in that specific field, there's going to be misalignment there, and you will be unfulfilled and unhappy. So I love, love, love that you're taking this approach with your clients. So thank you.
Yeah.
And then my next question is, now that we've spoken a little bit about Authentic Empowerment LLC, I would love to know what your vision is for your company within the next 3 years. Like, what do you see yourself doing? What would you like to do with the company?
Yeah. What I love about having my own business is that sometimes this answer changes month to month, and it's
Yes.
completely okay because it's my business. But the biggest thing, 3 years from now, I really would love to be collaborating with more humans, and ideally having some more folks either working with me or under with the company, because that is one piece that I love is collaboration. And when you're starting like a coaching and speaking business, it's a lot of like one-on-one. Like I do one-on-one clients. I do workshops every once in a while right now. And And I really miss kind of that collaborative community approach. And so I would really love, things like retreats. And I believe right now, and we can see it, especially with all the layoffs going on, how recruiting and corporate America is not, there's a lot of things that are broken within the system. And so I can see like doing like courses and things where I'm getting more kind of hands-on with not just helping folks navigate the system, but like how can we actually influence the system. And so I don't know what that looks like, but I know that it's collaborative, and I know that more community, and not in just a like group coaching community, but really I know how powerful connections are and can be, that are true and real, and how big networking is that feels good. And so I can see that how my company is going to be growing, and that is the direction I'm wanting to move in. So still, I mean, I imagine I still do one-on-one coaching, and I want to do more like touch more folks and be able to like bring more people in, not just who I'm working with, but like who's working with me.
I love that. I definitely see you collaborating with more people in the future and even doing a retreat like you mentioned. I don't know if you're trying to do like a career women's empowerment retreat, or like I can also see you doing like mindset retreat stuff, like doing yoga and more deeper like subconscious related work.
Hmm.
But I see you killing it in the next couple of years, and I can't wait to see the growth of an Authentic Empowerment LLC.
Thank you. I'm
You're
excited.
welcome. And then, so now moving on to the next question, I want to know from you, what does it mean to show up as your authentic self?
Mhm. For me personally, showing up for my authentic self is sourcing from within. And when I say sourcing from within, that means making decisions for me, influenced by me. So I can often tell when I'm living inauthentically, or even if in my business, and it doesn't have to be always dramatic, but if I'm doing things and words like should come up, or someone's like, you need to do this in your business, and I like take their word as law, and without actually checking in with myself and saying like, does this feel good? Um does this align with what we're feeling or what we want to do? And so one is just making sure my voice is the voice on center stage, driving and making the decisions. And then the other one is being able to show up in different rooms, and you know trust and have that confidence even when it doesn't feel like, when it feels shaky, just knowing that I'm going to be okay, and that my value and my worth is not tied to what I do or what others think of me, and that I'm really sourcing that for myself. And it really is just allowing like the full me to show up in the different ways, and be okay when, I have the highs and the lows, and not feel like I need to put on a mask or feel like I need to show up differently. And it's also okay if there's some groups that I show up differently for. That doesn't mean I'm being inauthentic. It's just like honoring the different parts of me. And so when I talk about folks living authentically for themselves, because authenticity is definitely especially now, I think it's starting to become a very big buzzword throwing around. And then I see so much guilt attached to it. And so
Mhm.
really releasing that guilt and shame is really big, and defining it for yourself. So any of these terms that we're talking about, empowerment, authenticity, truth, self-love, those are so general. And it's really important we define each of those words for ourselves and what it means to us, because my definition is going to be different than your definition. And that is the key. And to keep checking in, because things change. And sometimes when we're changing, we fight against the change happening because we've decided this is who we are. And so when something new comes up, or we like something different, there's like a clash within us. And so then there's also the being open to change, and like you evolving and changing differently without judging yourself or having an expectation of how you think you should, again, need to evolve.
Exactly. I love your definition, and I 100% agree as well that everybody needs to define authenticity for themselves. Like, it's a huge buzzword right now. Everybody's like, authenticity this, authenticity that, self care, self love, all this stuff. But it's like, what does it mean to you? And you brought up a very valid point that, sometimes there's conflict when you like something that you perhaps didn't like in the past. And now it's like, oh, I'm kind of enjoying this, but we have to allow ourselves to move through the seasons of our lives. There's going to be seasons where we may not like something, but there's going to be seasons where it's like, we love it now, and we need to allow ourselves to evolve and to change because we're humans. We're supposed to be changing. We're supposed to be growing. So thank you for bringing up those points. And you brought up two other big points, which is basically silencing the background noise, like
Mm.
silencing everybody else to honor yourself and your thoughts and really just be able to tap into like your intuition and what you believe in, essentially. And also honoring the different parts of yourself because you're just not a one and done type of thing. Like you're a multifaceted individual. You have different interests, you have different passions, and it's okay to have them. So I like that you brought up those points as well.
Yeah. And your friends too. I would say too, the people that you spend time with, it's okay if that evolves. I feel like that can be a very big one, especially moving out of college or like big life zone, a milestone changes like that. There's a lot of guilt and a lot of worry and things when we've outgrown our friends or they're just not vibing in the same way that they used to. And so I think the more we can normalize that that's also very normal and that doesn't make you a bad friend or them a bad person or anything like that. It's just change.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of times people definitely do forget that. It's just like, oh, these people have been my friends for so long. Like, let me just keep them around because we've been friends for so long. And that doesn't have to be the case. Sometimes you have to let people go because they're just not serving a specific purpose in your life anymore. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be like a negative friend breakup. Sometimes you just outgrow people, and that's just life. So thank you for bringing up that point as well. And now that we have talked about authenticity, something else that I like to focus on in the podcast is community. I have a
Mm.
saying that goes, community made, not self made. So I want to know from you, what does community mean to you?
Community is so foundational and important. It is your lifeline. And I think sometimes when we're doing a lot of this self love healing work, we feel like we need to do it in isolation or by ourselves. And I feel like it's so important to have community and being very aware and intentional and sometimes strict about your community
Mhm.
is vital because you can also have folks around you that are actually detrimental to you and are doing the opposite of like the direction you want to go. And that's where the belonging piece comes in. I'm really big on like that belonging, right? Because my own like I've struggled personally with my own sense of belonging and identity. And it was because I for so long I was looking outside of myself for that belonging. And I say this a lot that you can't belong anywhere till you belong to yourself first. And the more you can belong to yourself
Mhm.
first, and then you connect with community and people that see you for you, no questions asked, that community is just so much stronger. And then that sense of belonging, it feels different. So if you still are like trying to source this belonging and worth from your community, that's not what community is there for. That's your job. And community is there to support you when you fall, to celebrate you when you do great, to like on the mundane moments. But at the end of the day, if you're looking to community to answer questions for your own life, that's always going to be a feel disconnect. So community is so vital and so important, and being very aware of the community that you engage in. And I think it's also important too that I think sometimes when you think about community or family, that it's like you have one community. Like for me, I have multiple different groups of communities that serve and
Exactly.
give me for different reasons. And so that's also okay too. I like back in the day, and still I still have this where I want everyone to be friends with everyone. And
I'm
that's
the
not
same
always the
way.
I'm not that's not always the case. And but now I can be like, because I've worked so much on myself and then who's in my circle, when my communities cross, there it's genuine connection that can happen there, but also it's totally okay that if I have a community of other women business owners, if I have community of like close friends, if I have a community of like certain interests that I want, of hobbies that I like, of like, run, it's okay to have multiple communities. And so that's also another thing is like you don't need one person or a few people to be your everything, because I don't think that's realistic or sustainable. And so really finding community in all different ways and being open to where it unfolds.
You just dropped so many gems, and I hope that whoever is listening to this podcast runs that back and listens to that again because it really is so important. Like, you don't just have one community. And you said something along the lines of like you need to belong to yourself first before trying to
Mm.
find belonging in others. And I 100% agree because a lot of times we seek community out to feel that sense of belonging. And while that is important, you need to make sure that you're okay with yourself first and you love yourself first before trying to find essentially validation in other people. But you just brought up so many great points. And that takes me to my last question that I'm going to ask you is what three pieces of advice would you give our audience? Because you just dropped so many great things. And I just want to know from you, what are three pieces of advice that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I would say the first big one, especially I want to say if folks, actually, it doesn't matter, any age, never be the one to opt yourself out. Like, never be the one
Mhm.
to count yourself out. Like, just always go for the thing that scares you, that like kind of makes that tingling, uncomfortable, scary feeling, not like a hard no, but that scare you. Like, just go for it because that is where magic like lives and that's where the magic happens. So people can tell you no, and yeah, that can suck and not feel great, but don't be the person that tells yourself no. Like, like say
Yeah,
yes to yourself constantly. So I would say that. And then I say this to myself all the time: progress over perfection, because I am a
yes.
recovering perfectionist. And it is so vital to just go and move and make progress and be okay with things not being absolutely perfect or doing all the research beforehand, because often in that movement is where the discovery happens and when all the uncovering of what it is you actually want happen. But if you wait, it's never going to happen in the way, and you're always going to be judging yourself and you're always going to be having reasons why. So just little steps, baby steps, progress over perfection. And lastly, just have fun. I really believe in just have fun with your life, and you know, take things seriously, but also the more you can have fun or ask yourself, even as you're working, even in whatever aspect of the career world you're at, I often will tell folks, and I ask this of myself, is like, how can I make this more fun? Because fun and
Mhm.
play is so vital. And the more that's kind of the focus of when you're creating or you're working and you're asking that question, again, that's going to lead to curiosity. That's going to get you closer to the things that matter to you, the things that you love. Because, we don't also, it took me a while to discover what my purpose was and what my values were. And so you don't need to figure out your values and your purpose and your mission before you start doing. You got to do, you got to have fun. You got to like go after the big things. And then those things, start surfacing. So that's what I would say. Those three things, people just go do it.
I 100% agree with you. So have fun, say yes to yourself, don't count yourself out, and progress over perfection. I 100% resonate with that. And even for folks watching this podcast, this idea was in my head since 2019 to come up with this podcast. But I wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist, But I was just like, oh no, like I don't feel like I'm good enough to do this right now. I don't think I have all the right words to say. But eventually I was just like, put it out there, because there's an author that went to my school. His name is Arissan Nicole, and he said something along the lines of like, it may be 30% good to you, but it may be 100% what somebody else needs to see, needs to hear. And that's the truth. Like, you come from humble beginnings. Like, this is the beginning of my podcast. So you really do have to allow yourself to just put the work out there and let people receive it how they want to receive it. And say, and in part, that's also saying yes to yourself. Like, yes, I want to do this. And yes, I'm going to do it scared. And yes, I'm going to do it. And it's not going to be perfect. And it may be a little bit embarrassing. I may look back a couple years down the line and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. But you're going to thank yourself at the end of the day. And having
Yeah.
fun is very, very
Yeah.
important as well, because I feel like we tend to lose that fun aspect as we grow older. We just become very serious adults, and we're just very, just everything's so serious. And it's like, no, bring the fun back. Let's have fun. Let's be childlike again. So thank you so
Yes,
much.
actually.
Yes, thank you so much for those great three pieces of advice. And that brings us to the end of our interview, unfortunately. I just want to thank you so much for being here with me today. And I want to provide you the opportunity as well to share socials with the audience. Where can they find you on the web, on the internet? Let the people know.
Yeah, well, this was absolutely lovely. And you can find me. My website is my name, arissannicole.com. So ARISSANNICOLE.com. And that's the same handle for Instagram and TikTok, Arissan Nicole. And then LinkedIn is my same name. Actually, it's just Arissan because not very many people have my name. So please connect with me. If career change is something that you're looking for, or even just life change, reach out. I offer currently free discovery calls and consultations, and I'm currently doing resume reviews, and so I get into the technical side of career development, and then I also get into the fun, juicy life side of coaching. So yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out. I love to hear from folks.
I love it. Yes. And please reach out to Arissan if you have any questions about anything. She's a great person to follow, great person to be around, great person to have a part of your community. So thank you so much. And that's it. Till next time, y'all.